I hope you're looking forward to a great morning walk to the Borghese Gallery. This guide will take you from the front doors of your hotel through centuries of scandals, cinematic masterpieces, and breathtaking art. Keep your ears open, your eyes moving, and let's discover the hidden layers of the Eternal City. Step out of the lobby of the Doubletree, head out toward the Papal Basilica of St. Mary Major, and turn the corner onto Via Torino. Because this morning's stroll through Rome is less of a casual walk and more of a scandal-filled, art-obsessed romp through time. We're leaving the safe comfort of your hotel to traipse through the ancient, gritty red light district of the Suburra, where Julius Caesar famously got his start, before spiraling into the chaos of the Piazza della Repubblica, home to water nymphs that once scandalized an entire city. As we navigate the streets between modern luxury and ancient ruins, you'll encounter everything from Michelangelo's architectural brilliance to a fountain featuring a statue the locals hilariously dubbed Ugly Moses. We'll step into the dimly lit, operatic intensity of Bernini's The Ecstasy of St. Teresa, wander the glamorous sidewalks that birthed the paparazzi, and finally end our journey at the villa of Cardinal Scipione Borghese, a man who collected art with the zeal of a mob boss and the strategic cunning of a high society villain. By the time we reach the Galleria, you'll have dodged traffic, learned to spot a historical forgery, and witnessed the layers of history that make Rome the Eternal City. Let's go find some trouble and a whole lot of genius. You are officially leaving the historic edges of the Monte neighborhood. Today, Monte is famous for its hip boutiques, cobblestone alleys, and wine bars. But 2,000 years ago, this area was known as the Suburra, the ancient Roman equivalent of a gritty, overcrowded red light district. It was loud, dangerous, and dirty. Julius Caesar was actually born in the Suburra, which gave him his legendary ability to connect with the common, everyday citizens of Rome. As you pass Via del Viminale and look to your left, you'll see Rome's main opera house, known as the Teatro dell'Opera di Roma, or Teatro Costanzi, was built in just 18 months and inaugurated in 1880 in the presence of the King of Italy. The historic venue boasts a massive stage and the largest Murano crystal chandelier in Europe. Keep walking straight. Beyond its architectural beauty, the theater has been the stage for some of the most legendary moments in opera history. It was here, in the presence of the Italian royal family, that the world witnessed the premiere of Pietro Mascagni's Cavalleria Rusticana in 1890, a performance so successful it arguably launched the Verismo movement. Even more famously, the theater hosted the premiere of Giacomo Puccini's Tosca on January 14, 1900. The atmosphere that night was reportedly electric, filled with anxious anticipation and high society drama, marking a defining moment for Italian opera that has echoed through the grand halls ever since. As you reach the major street up ahead, you'll turn right. And it'll open up into a vast, sun-drenched square dominated by a massive traffic roundabout. This is our first major stop. Piazza della Repubblica. As you approach the edge of the square, look toward the giant fountain spraying water in the center of the traffic loop. Stop at the pedestrian crossing or the safety barrier at the edge of the circular piazza, looking directly at the fountain in the center. Take a look at the shape of this grand, sweeping piazza. Notice how the buildings curve gently around the perimeter? That is not an accident. This entire modern square was built directly on top of the ruins of the Baths of Diocletian, which opened in the year 306 AD. The curve of the buildings perfectly mirrors the outer walls of the ancient bathhouse's massive exedra, a giant, semicircular theatrical meeting space. Now let's talk about the fountain in the middle, the Fontana della Naiadi, or, in English, the Fountain of the Nymphs. When this fountain was officially unveiled in 1901, it caused an absolute uproar. The sculptor, Mario Rutelli, didn't give the public traditional, modest, cloaked figures. Instead, he sculpted 4 naked water nymphs draped over slippery sea creatures, a swan, a sea monster, a horse, and a dragon. Conservative Roman society went into a frenzy. A wooden fence was built around the fountain to hide the sculptures from pure eyes, and a fierce public debate raged for months. Finally, under the cover of darkness, a group of local teens tore the fence down. The city fell in love with them, and the nymphs stayed. As we head through the roundabout in north, down via Vittorio Emanuele Orlando to the left. Do you see that massive, rugged, ancient brick facade that looks like a ruin? That is the church of Santa Maria degli Angeli e dei Martiri. Michelangelo actually designed it inside the surviving shell of the ancient Roman bathhouse complex. The church floor also features a famous 45-meter meridian line built in 1702, which acted as a massive astronomical clock used by the Pope to verify calendar accuracy and regulate Rome's time for nearly 150 years. As you walk up via Vittorio Emanuele Orlando, you are transitioning into the late 19th century expansion of Rome, built shortly after Italy became a unified country in 1861. The grand hotels and ministry buildings around you were constructed to show the world that Rome was a major modern European capital, not just a collection of ancient ruins. Keep walking until you reach the major intersection at the top of the street, where it crosses via XX September. On your right, built right into the corner of the large palace building, you will see a monumental white marble fountain with 3 grand arches. Cross the street carefully when the signal allows, and stand in front of the giant fountain built into the wall. This is the Fountain of Moses, completed in 1587 by order of Pope Sixtus V. The Pope wanted to bring fresh drinking water back to the high hills of Rome, so he paid to repair a ruined ancient Roman aqueduct. This fountain was built as the grand terminus, the ultimate showpiece to prove the water had arrived. But let's look closer at the central figure of Moses. He looks a little compressed, doesn't he? His torso is incredibly blocky, and his arms look slightly out of proportion. The story goes that the sculptor, Prospero de Brescia, tried to copy Michelangelo's famous Moses statue but completely botched the scale of the marble block he was given. When the sheet dropped at the unveiling, the public laughed. They dubbed it the Mos Bruto, or Ugly Moses. They also joked that Moses looked like he was holding his stone tablets just to hide his bad posture. Now face the tall white church located right next door to the fountain. This is the Church of Santa Maria della Vittoria. We're going to take a quick detour here and step inside. Assuming it's open, let's proceed up the stairs of church and step through the front doors into the dimly lit interior. Once inside, walk down the main aisle, admiring the amazing statues and artwork. As you approach the altar, look at the chapel on your left. Welcome to the ultimate theater of the Baroque era. You are looking at Gian Lorenzo Bernini's masterpiece, The Ecstasy of St. Teresa. Bernini didn't just sculpt a statue, he designed an entire sensory experience. He used hidden windows behind the gilded frame to cast a natural, heavenly light down onto the white marble. Teresa is depicted in a moment of intense spiritual rapture as an angel prepares to pierce her heart with a golden arrow. Look at the incredibly complex folds of her robes. Bernini managed to make solid stone look like weightless, swirling silk. And don't miss the side walls of the chapel. Bernini sculpted members of the wealthy Cornaro family sitting in lifelike marble theater boxes, whispering to each other as they look down at the altar, transforming the entire chapel into a divine opera house. Take as long as you'd like to admire Bernini's work here, and when you're ready, exit the church. Once you leave the church, turn right and walk down Largo di Santa Susanna. As you head down the street, you'll see a statue that looks like 4 columns. It's called Il Mito di Giano, or the Myth of Janus, and centers on the ancient Roman god of beginnings, gates, and transitions, who is famously depicted with 2 faces looking simultaneously into the past and the future to symbolize time, duality, and change. The statue sits on fragments of the Servian walls, one of Rome's first lines of defense. At the statue, you'll veer to the left of the Carige building and start walking downhill. As you walk down the incline, you are physically stepping into a deep geographical valley that carries an incredible history. In ancient times, this valley held the Horti Sallustiani, or the Gardens of Sallust, a massive, opulent private estate owned by a wealthy Roman historian. It was filled with palaces, private racetracks, and artificial lakes. It was so luxurious that the Roman emperors eventually seized it for themselves to use as an official imperial holiday retreat within the city walls. On your right, you should be passing the Institute of National Insurance. As you get past the building, where the street crosses the wide avenue of Via Leonida Bisalati, look at the corner for a beautiful, small marble fountain. When you get to the fountain, pause by the iron railings to take a look. This is the Fontana Sallustiana. At first glance, it looks like it belongs to the era of Bernini and the Baroque popes. But it's actually a clever architectural forgery. It was built in 1927 by architect Ugo Giovinazzi. Look at the playful details. 2 chubby marble cherubs sitting atop sculpted rocks, wrestling with a wrought iron fishing net that appears to be catching stones, seashells, and dolphins. This fountain was built as part of a massive urban redesign project. In the late 1800s, this entire area was a pristine, sprawling park owned by the aristocratic Ludovisi family, filled with centuries-old trees and ancient Roman statues. But when Rome became the capital of Italy, the family sold the land to real estate developers, who chopped down the historic forest to build the upscale neighborhood you see today. This little fountain was installed to give the new, modern streets a touch of old-world Roman charm. From the fountain, follow Via Leonida Bisalati for 1 block until it opens up onto the wide, curving, tree-lined boulevard of Via Vittorio Veneto and begin walking up the gentle hill. As you walk up the wide sidewalks of Via Veneto, you are walking through Italy's most exclusive thoroughfare. In the 1950s and 60s, this street was the epicenter of global celebrity culture. With wide sidewalks, luxurious 5-star establishments like the Westin Excelsior, and historic sidewalk cafes, The street became a glamorous haven for Hollywood elites, including Audrey Hepburn, Gregory Peck, and Sophia Loren. Other Hollywood stars like Charlton Heston and Elizabeth Taylor would spend their days filming at the nearby Cinecittà studios, and their nights drinking cocktails at the outdoor cafes lining this exact sidewalk. The avenue became globally synonymous with La Dolce Vita after serving as the core inspiration and backdrop for Federico Fellini's iconic 1960 film of the same name. Fellini's cinematic masterpiece captured a glittering but cynical world of endless cocktail hours at Harry's bar and elite midnight parties. Crucially, the relentless media circus on Via Veneto birthed the very concept of the paparazzi, a term coined from Fellini's character Paparazzo, who was based on the aggressive real-life photographers who staked out these streets to ambush celebrities under the flashbulbs. As you walk past the grand facades on your right, look for a small, elegant white marble plaque mounted to the stone wall. If you see it, you've found the targa of Federico Fellini. This simple plaque commemorates the master director who immortalized this street. As you walk to the top of Via Veneto, you should see a towering, massive brick wall. We're going to head to the right and walk along this massive brick wall. You should see the grand arches of the gate known as Porta Pinciana, which were built right into the Aurelian walls. These fortifications were thrown up between 271 and 275 AD by Emperor Aurelian. For centuries, Rome didn't need walls because its legions conquered anyone who dared come close. But by the late 3rd century, barbarian tribes were probing the borders, and the city realized it was completely defenseless. These walls wrap around the entire historic center of Rome, measuring nearly 12 miles long and standing up to 30 feet high. Walk along the outside of the ancient brick wall along Via Campagna. Look for a large, deep stone alcove built directly into the bricks. Inside this stone niche sits the grim, weather-worn Busto di Belisario. This bust honors General Belisarius, who was one of the greatest military minds of the Byzantine Empire. In the year 537 AD, he held this exact gate against a massive, terrifying siege by the Ostrogoths. His men were outnumbered nearly 10 to 1, but through sheer tactical brilliance, Belisarius defended the Porta Pinciana and saved the city from destruction. Turn around and head back toward Porta Pinciana as I tell you more about the fate of Belisarius. According to a dramatic local legend, the emperor later became intensely jealous of Belisarius's fame. He accused the general of treason, confiscated all his gold, and put out his eyes. The story goes that the once mighty general spent his final years sitting right here at the Porta Pinciana as a blind beggar, holding out a wooden bowl and calling out to passing citizens for a donation. While modern historians believe he actually retired peacefully to a coastal palace, the local Romans still love to look at this bust and remember the tragic story of the city's blind protector. As you make your way through the ancient stone arches, you are leaving the bustling city grid and heading toward the tranquil oasis of Villa Borghese and the Borghese Gardens. You should see a couple of large white columns and the entrance to the park across the street. Be careful making your way across the street and into the park. But once you cross the street and pass the gate, we're going to head toward the right. Follow the main asphalt path, Viale del Museo Borghese, as it winds deeper into the trees. As you head down the street, on your left you'll see a Carrara marble statue of Lord Byron. It's a 1959 replica of an original 1830s work by Danish sculptor Bertel Thorvaldsen, who carved the piece while living in Rome. The monument captures the famous Romantic poet seated pensively among ancient ruins, holding a pen and a book fragment, while the pedestal beneath him is inscribed with poignant verses from his own narrative poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, dedicating his love to the city of the soul. As you continue to walk up the street, beyond the statue on the left is the Casa del Cinema. This historic building has undergone a fascinating transformation over the decades. Originally used as a restaurant, it was severely damaged during the 1849 Roman Republic battles, subsequently served as a dairy cowshed, and later evolved into the glamorous La Lucciola dancing club during the peak of the La Dolce Vita era. After sitting abandoned for over 25 years, the complex underwent an $8 million restoration and officially opened in 2004 as a state-of-the-art cinematic hub featuring 3 indoor screening rooms, exhibition halls, and a massive 30,000-volume library. Today it stands as a cornerstone for film lovers, hosting prestigious events like the Rome Film Fest, and features the popular Teatro all'Aperto e Torre Scola, an open-air summer theater where visitors can watch classic films under the Roman pines completely free of charge. On your right, you should be passing a small monument called the Shrine of the Muse, added to the park grounds during an extensive landscaping renovation in the early 1800s. Take a close look at the marble statue standing gracefully inside the columned niche. She looks incredibly proper and sophisticated, the perfect image of a classical muse of art and poetry. But if you look closer at the way her thin marble dress clings to her skin and the slight twist of her hips, you're seeing a bit of classical censorship. Continue walking straight down the main path. When the Borghese family dug this ancient statue up from their land, archaeologists realized she wasn't a respectable muse at all. She was originally a bacchante, a wild, wine-soaked, ecstatic follower of Bacchus, the god of theater and wine. To make her fit for a family-friendly park, the family had a sculptor chisel away her wine cup, give her a modest classical makeover, and rebrand her as a dignified lady of the arts. Follow the signs directing you toward the museum. The good news is that you're almost to our final destination, Galleria Borghese. While you walk, let me tell you about the magnificent palace you are headed toward. The magnificent, 2-story, cream-colored palace you are approaching was built in the early 1600s by Cardinal Scipione Borghese. Scipione was the nephew of Pope Paul V, which gave him access to an astronomical amount of wealth and power. If nepotism were an Olympic sport, Scipione would have taken the gold. He used that power to feed a single ravenous vice, an absolute, borderline unhinged obsession with collecting art. Scipione was undeniably a visionary patron. He was the one who discovered a young Gian Lorenzo Bernini and commissioned many of the marble masterworks you saw earlier. But he was also essentially a high society mob boss in a cardinal's robe. If Scipione saw a painting he liked and the owner refused to sell it, the cardinal would use his political muscle to have the owner thrown into a Roman dungeon on fabricated charges, neatly confiscating the artwork for his own walls. He even had his guards sneak into a church in Perugia at night to steal a famous Raphael painting right off the altar. When the townspeople rioted, Scipione's uncle, the Pope, stepped in with the ultimate family cover-up, officially declaring the stolen painting a gift to his nephew. Case closed. But Scipione didn't just hoard art. He built this entire place as the ultimate 17th century party pad. Contemporary accounts describe him as a cheerful social butterfly with a massive appetite for food, wine, and luxury. He filled the surrounding gardens with exotic birds, rare animals, and secret fountains designed to spray unsuspecting guests for his own personal amusement. If you were nobility in Baroque Rome, an invitation here was the hottest ticket in town, even if you had to double-check that your own family heirlooms hadn't been stolen to decorate the dining room. His close partnership with Bernini also gave us one of history's greatest artistic panic attacks. Bernini spent months carving a flawless marble bust of the cardinal, which you'll see inside. But during the final polish, disaster struck. A massive crack split right across the marble forehead. Knowing Scipione's terrifying temper, Bernini pulled off an absolute miracle, secretly carving a second, completely identical bust from scratch in just 3 days. On reveal day, Bernini pranked the cardinal by showing him the cracked version first just to watch him sweat, before pulling back the curtain on the flawless backup. Because of his insatiable obsession with art, petty thefts, and incredible eye for genius, Villa Borghese now houses one of the most concentrated, spectacular art collections in the entire world. Enjoy your visit.